Thank you. Thank you. Just like, again, I'm still trying to figure this out since I only have one screen. So yeah, in today's talk, we're going to be talking about, is your cloud secure? And this is talking about the Microsoft ecosystem. So just to give you a little bit of background, and thank you, Nick, for the intro. I'm, doing penetration testing. I'm also coming from a background of cloud security. I'm pretty seasoned, or, always room for growth, but I'm pretty proficient with the Microsoft security ecosystem, like MDE, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and Microsoft Cloud Security and Microsoft Sentinel, which is their SIM, their cloud SIM solution. So IAM and all that fun jazz. So what we're going to be talking about is some of that from my own experiences. And if you guys have any questions towards the end, just put it in the chat, and I'll find it hopefully. So here it goes, like the rising stakes of cloud security, right? So pretty much 80% of the companies experienced cloud security incidents last year. Pretty much every single year, there's always a point that we can improve upon our security in the cloud. There's times when where I've been in situations where we want to just get stuff configured quickly, and we just want to get stuff configured, and pushed out to the end user, to the end client, etc. But we don't really truly think sometimes fully through, right? So sometimes we want to make sure, expanding on that attack surface, right? So as an organization, a lot of people are adopting the cloud today. So, what is a entry for an attacker, right? There's potential multiple ways that attacker can get into your network. But we can leverage a service, we can leverage an application, integrated expands for the threat landscape. So what does this mean? Say, for example, you're using something called SSO, and you're using this to authenticate to maybe Slack or Jira, GitHub, or something like that. That's an entry point because you're authenticating with your Intra ID or Azure AD credentials if you're having SSO federated. Okay. So, and then obviously mostly modern attackers, we want to target different kinds of ways to leverage those cloud environments. If it's Microsoft, in this case, GCP, Azure, what are we going to target, right? We're going to see if there's many misconfigurations. We're going to see if there's any vulnerabilities that we can leverage and then exploiting them, right? That's pretty much maybe the end result that an attacker wants to try to do, is leverage that and try to gain that unauthorized access to that cloud environment, right? So the cloud is a target, right? There is, let me watch my words. A lot of people have cloud as, maybe a lot of people working remote, right? So everything is mostly in the cloud today. There's not like a traditional old school, if you maybe doing this 15 years ago, you have everything, your Exchange, your SharePoint, your Active Directory, all inside of like an MDF inside your organization. Now everything is going up to the cloud, right? You're talking to me through a cloud, or I'm talking to you guys through quote unquote Zoom's cloud. So the cloud is pretty much a target as well. It's just another computer in someone else's data center, ideally, right? So threat actors are increasingly forced to try to get into cloud environments, cloud infrastructures. And obviously, it's a new frontier, right? It's a new frontier for vulnerable data or valuable data and critical applications that we all operate on, right? So let me move this a little bit up. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but this is in my way. All right. So why cloud security matters even more than ever, right? Just like I just said, right? Cloud is so important today, and it has financial impact. God forbid you get ransomed, or you get hacked, or you get data breached, etc. There's an average of $4.4 million in 2025 so far, right? And that obviously that's going to keep on increasing because we're going to get more the systems are going to get more smart in order for us to trick a system to do what we want it to do, right? That's what hackers do. So, regulatory pressure, you want to make sure make sure you don't have any data loss. You don't want to damage any kind of reputation or anything like that, right? Because you can face severe penalties. That's no good. And then a new paradigm. So the fact that more cloud, more cloud environments are getting more complex, more services added, all that stuff. So what does that do? That adds another layer or another security application that we have to secure as defenders. And for an attacker, that's just one leveraging them. So we'll open up another door for the house, right? So that's pretty much what that means there. I'm going to try to go quickly because I know we only have an hour and I have a lot of slides. So maybe I need to shorten up my talk. So understanding Microsoft's shared responsibilities models, right? So there is certain kinds of areas that Microsoft Azure does. They share responsibility models and explain here. We have Microsoft's responsibilities. So Microsoft secure pretty much the fundamental cloud infrastructure, including the physical hardware, global network connectivity. If you guys know, AWS got had some little issues last week, or was it this week or last week, or whatever day it was, and they had a big boo-boo, right? So, and data center faculties with obviously military grade security. So making sure you have, if you're hosting that stuff, you have to make sure you're pretty secure, pretty much, right? So, and then the customer's responsibility, right? We own our own data. We want to make sure we have that under our control. User identities like Active Directory, Intra ID, applications, configurations, access controls, and all that fun jazz, right? And then the division of security responsibilities, right? This goes to shift against like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. So we want to make sure we're all good across the board. All right, so some of these shared responsibilities by service types, right? We have infrastructure as service. So you manage the operating system, you make sure it's all patched, you make sure updates are all good to go. You secure your applications, you control the data encryption and access to your applications and to your data. And then the maximum flexibility, maximum responsibility, right? So, and then we have platform as a service. And Microsoft manages a runtime environment. So the platform itself, that's their bells and whistles. But then you can secure the custom applications. You can protect the data, the user access, balance secure responsibility model, right? And then we have software as a service. This is a lot of people probably know SaaS products and Salesforce and all the fun jazz. But Microsoft manages infrastructure and applications. You can manage data classification. You can control user access and permissions, and then minimum infrastructure burden, right? So that's visualizing that responsibility. And then here we go with identity and access management. Everyone's favorite. I don't know, at least my least favorite. It was IAM, right? That's just my little inside joke. But Azure AD, central to, let me move this again, sorry, secure access. Okay, so we have Azure AD. I always still call it Azure AD. Intra ID still hasn't fit in my vocabulary, but it serves as the cornerstone of any identity management across the Microsoft ecosystem. If you guys are familiar, before the cloud, you have Active Directory, or still Active Directory still exists. It didn't go anywhere, but now the new up and coming name is Intra ID, and providing a unique platform for authentication or authorization. So they support millions of identities globally with enterprise grade. Excuse me. And excuse me. I really hope I'm not getting sick from that trip. But enable streamlined SSO across Microsoft 365, Azure services, and thousands of other third-party applications. Like I said, we can SSO, we can use this authentication to maybe go to Okta and other applications that we can leverage that identity. And then provides comprehensive identity protection and risk detection.
One quick question for you as it pertains to not this slide, but more so the last slide. I got a question in the Q&A here. And just a reminder to everybody, feel free to pop any questions in here. If you have a question about any slide while we're going along, we'll stop and we'll get those questions asked. Somebody asked, how do you explain the shared responsibility model in layman terms to leadership teams who assume the cloud provider handles security?
Oh, that. And I would take a snippet of this, right? Take a screenshot or whatever. And ideally the infrastructure as a service, think about this as your server in your closet, right? And that's pretty much, you're responsible for that server. You want to make sure it's all patched. You want to make sure it's all good to go. And then the platform, this is the actual, like I said, platform. You want to, if you install, for an example, QuickBooks, or you install some kind of application that resides on that server, that's the platform. Is think about that as the applications that running on your infrastructure. And then, the software is just uh like how can I explain this stuff? So pretty much like your Salesforce, your Slack, your uh, I can't even think about stuff right now as software as a service, but think about that as um, like the application per se that's running within your environment. Hopefully that answers that.
Thank you very much. And if anybody has any other questions, feel free to pop them in and we'll get those asked.
Thanks. All right. So, oh man, my nose is stuffy. So MFA. So pretty much this is a non-negotiable security control, right? So 99% or 99.9% attack preventing rate. I would, all right, shut up. But so like this blocks 99% of your automated account compromise attacks. So obviously there's ways to bypass MFA. There is ways to do that, but obviously having that, it's just like your house, right? You have maybe a camera, but you can invade that camera. You have maybe deadbolt in your house. Maybe you have a back door that's locked, but you can still, if you really want to get that TV off your wall, we're gonna get it, right? If you're a thief. So, there's ways to pickpocket a pickpocketer, but you just have to make sure your hands are always in your pocket, right? So, so making it a single most effective security control available, right? Like you always want to implement this no matter what. And the ways you can do that is Microsoft Authenticator. In the Microsoft world, you have Duo, you have OAuth tokens, you have biometric options, different kinds of options to have that multi-factor text, etc. Like there's multiple ways, but like in text, you can actually use spoof cards to mock your phone number, and there's ways to bypass this, but this is definitely a good control to have in place to have some prevention. I like to talk about both because my mind goes to both. Let me move this out of the way. Sorry. Move you over here now. All right. So conditional access, right? So we have, when you're doing conditional access, we have location, say for example, you're going out of the country and you work in the US and you're going to go to Bermuda for vacation. You're like, oh, I want to connect to my Teams or my Outlook or maybe my AVD or my Azure desktop. And now you're getting blocked because your IP, there's ways around it. I know I don't want to hear in the comments there is ways around it, but hopefully the end user don't know how to do that if they're playing by the book. But you can have an alert in your conditional access to say, okay, like this person is being blocked because where they're located. So it'll analyze the location when they sign in against a known pattern. So like if they go to Bermuda every week because that's where they live, you can put an exception, but just that's something to think about. And device compliance, and then risk signals, right? So real-time threat intel. All right, so let's move you. This is a bummer working with no monitor. All right, so, whoops, sorry. So protecting data across its life cycle. So there's something called encryption at rest, in transit, or in use. This is pretty common. If it's in transit, you're going to use TLS 1.2 or above encryption. And this is going to secure the data that's moving between the services, the users, the databases or data centers, sorry. And when it's in use, think about this as like your AVD, your VM inside of Azure. If it's confidential, right? You want to make sure that data is encrypted because that is always being accessed, it's always being in use, and the data in memory during active processing. So that's data in use. And then you have the big name, defense in depth, right? So this is going to make it a multi-layer encryption that ensures data remains protected throughout its entire life cycle, right? Regardless of where it resides or how it moves, etc. So that's why defense in depth is super, super critical for a lot of organizations because it covers multiple areas. And then you have Azure SQL database protection. So this is going to use an encryption called transport data encryption, and it automatically encrypts databases within your SQL instance inside of Azure. Also its backups, also its logs, and without application changes. So you know how you do if you've ever been a DBA or a SQL guy, you have change logs. So those change logs, if they get changed, it's going to be a nightmare. So this actually tinkers with it without the application changes. All right, so at rest and the data storage service encryption with 256-bit ASE, and that protects the data stored in each database and file and backup. Right, so let me get a sip real quick. Let me get a sip. Okay. All right, so next one here is Azure Key Vault. So this is a centralized secrets management. And if anyone used these tools or anything like that, please, I can't see the chat now, but put a thumbs up or whatever. I would love to see who used these before, because this is a really cool thing if you're an Azure person or if you're working in the cloud today. So you have hardware security module. So this is it's backed security that's going to go ahead and encrypt pretty much all the layer 2 validated protection for all the secret keys, the secrets, etc. And then you have granular access control. This is going to leverage the Azure role-based access controls and access policies to ensure only authorized applications and users can receive the sensitive information. And then you have the certificate lifecycle, right? And this automates the certificate provisioning, rotation, and renewal, and eliminates any kind of manual process. Okay, so that's really, really good. So it doesn't lead to man, I really hope I'm not getting sick. And that often leads to security gaps or outages. I think coming up there was a bad idea. But all right. So data discovery and classification with Microsoft PureView. All right. So I just want to make sure there was nothing behind my face. All right. So then we have automated data discovery. So Microsoft PureView continuously scans your environment for identity sensitive data across the cloud and even on-prem, like if you have it federated onto your on-prem locations. And this is going to give you that visibility into that data landscape, right? And then you have intellect protection. So like, for an example, if it's discovered, it can automatically apply sensitive labels and protection policies based on the data type. So, discovering PII, personal identifiable information, financial data, health records like HIPAA, and maps all the data flows and relationships. So that's pretty critical, I think, and enables compliant reporting. So say if you have to go through any kind of compliance audits.
Another
All right.
question for you, real quick. I'll give you a second to take a drink here.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
if we already use tools like Defender for Cloud and Entra ID, how does Purview fit into that ecosystem? Are there overlapping features?
Ooh. So it is an overlapping feature, but this is the thing that's really tricky about the Microsoft ecosystem. Just because you know one thing doesn't mean you know it all. That's where I think a lot of people make this mistake. Like when I was in the Microsoft world, and I did, because cloud is massive, right? It's like I work in construction. Are you a plumber? Are you an electrician? Are you a landscape? Whatever you do in construction, or a doctor, right? What kind of doctor are you? So I work for Microsoft, for an example, and I just work on MDE, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, and Microsoft Sentinel. So my responsibility of the ecosystem was endpoint protection, making sure like ASR rules were good or attack surface reduction. So it can definitely, where it can fit in, it can overlap and take on the responsibility of maybe labeling, tagging those assets, right? And it can imply that and um, those protections against the peer view uh, ecosystem, if you want to say it. So yeah, that's pretty much, when I worked in it, I didn't really, me personally, I didn't get too much into peer view. My thing was more on the endpoint protection, endpoint security, and that side of the house. It was very, very limited to other areas like Defender for Office, like that's all the people that do Exchange and spam and SPF records and blah blah blah, and they do all the stuff with email, right? They don't touch anything with the endpoint. So when you're working into a Microsoft ecosystem, you're going to be pretty specialized in what you're doing. Like if you call Microsoft, you're going to have a team for everyone, right? Cisco, you have a switch team, a voice team, a routing team, a firewall team, because, you know, everyone has their little responsibility. So hopefully that makes sense.
It does. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So network infrastructure security best practices. This is my bread and butter. This is when I read this, I was like, yeah. All right. So secure hybrid network architectures. So we have something called Azure Firewall, and this is a fully stateful firewall as a service that's built in for HA and threat intelligence. This is really, really cool. If you guys haven't checked that out, please like go to security.microsoft.com. You can check out, these kind of features. And I know I haven't logged into it in probably, to be 100% honest, maybe 9 months or so. So it's probably changed because Microsoft likes to change their stuff every day and put things on different areas. But if you definitely want to, if you're into the network aspect or the endpoint protection, touching these technologies is definitely critical. So network security groups, this is going to filter the network traffic from your Azure resources to general security rules, right? And then you have DDoS protection. So Azure DDoS protection standards, provides adaptive tuning and attack mitigations, just so you don't get DDoSed. All right. So secure infrastructure as a service workloads. So what does this mean? So just like we were saying before, like if you want to um, deploy endpoint protection, like MDE, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, onto all the VMs, you want to make sure your indicators of compromise, all your rules, your attack surface reduction rules, all that stuff is in place that takes effect on that endpoint, right? So also you want to implement automated patch management. And what is this going to do? It's just going to make sure, all the latest and greatest Microsoft patches will be patched so you don't have any lingering vulnerabilities. And I know there's some exceptions because just because it's a cloud doesn't mean, it's still your VM, it's still your operating system that you're running in there. But if it's a legacy app, maybe you can't update it, but just isolate it or whatever. But make sure you're always patched. And then enable disk encryption at the VM creation. So when you do a Azure VM, you can enable VM encryption or enable disk encryption on your VM. And then you can use just-in-time VM access. That's another way to harden that VM. And then obviously apply network security groups. So that is segmented. And then you have continuous assessment. Azure Cloud Security Center, now Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And then this is going to go ahead and check all the boxes for security assessment with actionable recommendations. So yeah, that's pretty much. I wish I had like if we had a tenant up, I can show you, but it would be maybe next time we can talk about that. But and then the platform identifies misconfigurations, missing updates, security gaps before they can get exploited by attackers, right? So it's really, really cool. If you're using security.microsoft.com today, check it out, right? Check out Defender for Cloud. That's pretty cool. And then protecting your platform as a service services. So you have service endpoints, then you have private links, manage identities, right? So pretty much the best practice will always be to always prefer a private link over a service endpoint. And then, why is this? Because if it's a private link, it's a trusted relationship, I guess you can say in layman terms, right? Um, what time is it? I want to make sure I'm good on time. Okay, it's already 1:30. All right, so operational security and continuous monitoring. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So your security, this is I get no, this is not really a dashboard, but it looks like a cool dashboard, wannabe. Your security posture dashboard, and so secure score, like you can inside of your tenant, you can actually have a secure man, say that 3 times, secure score. So Defender for Cloud provides a secure score that you know that you can see all the postures. Pretty much what you can see is the actionable metrics that helps you prioritize or remediate different kinds of risk in your organization. And then why does this thing keep coming up? Whoops. I don't know why this keeps. Okay. Um, so the next one, the platform obviously can detect misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, active threats across your hybrid cloud environment. And obviously, hybrid cloud, you have your on-prem, you have your cloud solution, and it can check between both. All right. So incident response and threat detection. So we have 24/7 threat monitoring. So this is a little small. So the Microsoft Security Response Center monitors threats around the clock, analyzing trillions of signals daily to identify. I can't even see that emergent threats and vulnerabilities. I think I'm getting old. I need to get
I'll give you a
glasses.
break here for a second. I got two questions. Well, a short break.
Go ahead.
From an internal auditor's perspective, how would you test that your company is secure from vulnerabilities? And while you think on that one, I'm just going to answer the second question because it's for me. Will we be able to get a recording of this webinar? Yes, you will. That recording will be uploaded to youtube.com/Compass IT Compliance. That should be up, if not tomorrow on Monday. And
Cool.
sorry, Patrick, I'll repeat the question. From an internal auditor's perspective, how would you test that your company is secure from vulnerabilities?
From an internal auditor's perspective, how can you? So a good way is to have a VM committee. What is a VM committee? A VM committee is a vulnerability management committee, and you can actually, if you're running internally, right, you can run, depending on how big your organization is. I want to say, like, if you're a smaller organization, you can use stuff like OpenVAS, right? And OpenVAS is an open source vulnerability application or vulnerability management application. You can install that in your environment and run scans, or you can run Rapid7, Insight VM, Qualys. You can do, Nessus, whatever, and just to run like a vulnerability assessment internally and to see if there's any low-hanging fruit that resides within your internal network. And yeah, that's what I would say. I'm not an auditor, but as a pen tester going into a remediation, if I had a question, I would just say, yeah, run your own little vulnerability management and see what's out there, right? You never know what's out there. Like for example, me, right? This is a true thing. Like I have a lot of devices in my home, smart devices, and I do run a vulnerability management inside my house on a VM. And I use OpenVAS just because it's free. And maybe it's not always 100% accurate, but what are you going to get? It's open source. And then I can validate that against those CVEs out there in the wild. And yeah, so that's what I would do.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Patrick. And thank you to the both of you for the questions.
All right, sweet. So I think I don't remember if we did. Oh yeah, I think this is where we left off with the question. All right, so chapter 7, embracing zero trust in the Microsoft cloud. So let me move this again. Okay. All right, cool deal. So zero trust principles, right? Assume breach, verify explicit, I can't say that word, least privilege, right? So I'll start from the right and go around. Um, Device trust, right? You can validate the device health and compliance before granting access. So anytime you go ahead and deploy a new machine or you push a new machine out to a client or a user, you want to make sure it's all within its compliant regulatory stuff. Just so, they're going to gain access to your network. You want to make sure that's being monitored and good to go. So you trust that device on your infrastructure. So your workload security, right? Protect applications and services within your microsegmentation. And then risk-based access, right? Evaluate the risk signals in real time before allowing access. That's super, super critical. And then verify identity. This is, I think, the most critical, right? Continuous validation of the user identity and authorization status. So making sure they're always good to go, because I can clone myself and say, I'm so-and-so, I need access or whatever, and just making sure you can validate that and verify before, letting anyone in. Let's see if this is my way. All right. Excuse me. And all right, so real world zero trust implementation. So here is a case study on global enterprise transformation. So it's a Fortune 500 financial services company, reduced security breaches by 70% within 12 months of implementing zero trust architecture across their Microsoft cloud environment. That is super dope, right? I think that's super cool, just because, you can trust, you can verify and all that stuff for the zero trust. Don't trust anyone. That's pretty much what it means, right? Like all the New Yorkers, we don't trust anyone. But and automated decision making, right? And then enhanced productivity. That's definitely a good thing to have when you have zero trust implemented into your environment. All right, good on time. So chapter 8, probably my least favorite, governance, compliance, and cloud security culture. Never was into GSR or anything like that. Whoops. All right, so cloud governance with Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. So there's something called shadow IT discovery. So if you guys aren't familiar with, I worked with it a little bit. I'm not an expert at it, but Defender for cloud apps, obviously this automatically discovers, all the applications, all the cloud services within your organization, providing visibility into hidden security risks. So you want, like I said, I can't really talk too much on this. I want to be 100% honest. I don't have much experience with the cloud apps aspect, but this is pretty good info to have. So governance policies. So applying comprehensive governance policies and data loss prevention, DLP, rules across your applications. Obviously, DLP, if you don't want to make sure, you want to make sure anything that you send out of your organization is monitored. You don't want any sensitive data leaving that infrastructure. So you can monitor cloud app usage and behavior, detect malicious activities and threats, control data sharing and download. So all the stuff that you can have in your infrastructure, you can have monitored. And then compliance certificates and regulatory alignment. And then you have ISO 2700 or 2701, HIPAA, PCI DSS, and FedRAMP. Let me move me up here so now I can see myself. All right. Whoops, sorry. Let's go back here. So yeah, that's pretty much all the compliance that we see in the Microsoft ecosystem. And then building a security awareness cloud culture. So regular security training, I think that's across the board, right? Establish mandatory recurrent training programs to keep teams current on, in this case, cloud security, fundamentals, emerging threats, and best practices. Make security education engaging and relevant to each role, right? I can tell not a lot of people like security awareness training and doing all that fun jazz, but it's critical because that can help you prevent one phishing link from coming in that you can verify and report, and that can protect your company from craziness. Cross-functional collaboration. So foster active collaboration between security, IT operations, and development teams. Break down silos to create shared responsibility for security outcomes and enable faster threat response, right? And then security champions, identify and empower security champions within each team who can advocate for security best practices and serve as the first points of contact for security questions.
Quick question for you,
Yeah.
Patrick, as it pertains to the regular security awareness training. I know a lot of organizations conduct this annually. Is that still best practice? Would that be your recommendation, or would it be a more frequent cadence?
Oh, I like that. So I think, see, attackers don't sleep, right? They do stuff. And if you're lacking, so I wouldn't say yearly, I would say quarterly at most. I mean, minimum, like you can do it once a month, but I think quarterly will be a little more respected in your organization. Once a month, I think is a little absurd, but I think quarterly, that's four times a year. The reason why I say that, I know it's a pain in the butt. People don't like it because it's like, oh, it takes 30, 40 minutes out of my day or whatever it takes for before video, whatever. But just that one little video can prevent so much damage. And I have a story um, where I was working about 6 years ago. We we sold, security awareness training to our clients, and the client was like, "We don't need this. We don't want it. It's a waste of money. We have it was a law firm, and if people know lawyers, they whatever. Let me shut up. But they're like, oh, well, we have a whole bunch of Albert Einsteins on our team. No one's gonna click on anything. And literally, no joke, like we said that, I think it was like, I don't remember. I don't want to lie and say it was on a Tuesday and this happened on a Wednesday, but like it's, literally 2 or 3 days later, we had a DFIR case, right? So, and just because, someone clicked on a link and got ransomed, and it was bound to happen. It's just when, and people say, oh, my organization is too small for that. It's not about being too small or too big. You piss one person off, sure they have a friend, they're gonna damage you, right? So, and if someone's gonna still damage you, if you know how to fight back, you're not gonna get beat up, right? So if you know how to fight back and combat that just by watching a security awareness video, it's like, oh man, this I need to hover over the link. I can put this in Virus Total. I can put this in the Sandbox or Sandbox Joe, whatever the tool is, to see, oh man, this is not so and so's page. This looks, nuts. And they can send that to IT, and then they can do further investigation. So to answer your question, I think it's super critical.
Thank you so much, Pat.
Yep. All right. So the path forward. So let me move this. Let me scooch this down, maybe. All right. Let me just says cloud. All right. So key takeaways from a secure Microsoft Cloud. Obviously, this is everything that we spoke about in the last, what is it, 45 minutes or so. Own your responsibilities. Identify first security. That's why I was just saying, right? You want to identify what you're seeing and making sure it's not a risk, because one little click can do some damage, right? Protect data life cycles. You want to make sure everything is good to go in your life cycle of your data protection, and then making sure you continuously monitor your environment, and then adopt that zero trust. I think that's, I know people say, oh, it's a buzzword and all that stuff, but I think it's super critical, especially now. A lot of people working remote, so I think that's super key takeaway, hopefully. And let me see what it says up here. Let me move this down so I can see. All right, so your cloud security is a journey, not a destination. This is cool. This is true. I mean, so start today. You can start with Microsoft's comprehensive best practices, right? You have so many different benchmarks on Microsoft's website that you can just download that and just have that as a check mark. And even if you're not an expert with their platform, they give you the best practices how to configure their environments in order to try to stay as protected as possible. And then every security improvement, no matter how small, or reduce the risk and strengthens your posture. So you're never too small, and you're never like too small of a landscape to attack. If you exist, you're a target. That's the bottom line. You can have all the security controls, but trust me, if they want in, they're going to get in. you know. All right, so continuous improvement. So cloud security involves, obviously every day consistently. So commit to ongoing assessment, adoption, and enhancement of your security controls. And that's pretty much it, right? Secure your cloud, protect your business, empower your teams, and build trust with your customers, right? So questions and next steps. Um, ready, I guess, yeah, ready to evaluate your security. Let's discuss, if you want to have any kind of questions, if you have any questions about if you're running cloud security today in Microsoft, reach out to us and we'll
Yeah,
get
and
you
I
in.
can if anybody wants to reach out after, you can reach out to Patrick, myself. You can reach out on our website. We'll get you connected up with Patrick. I did have another question or two here, and I will give everybody we do have a little extra time, so I'll give some people a few minutes if they want to ask any other questions as well. In your experience, Patrick, how often do organizations accidentally leave storage buckets like S3 or Azure Blob publicly accessible? And what's the most reliable way to continuously detect that as we continuously hear about these incidents?
Oh, that's a lovely question. So, can I see the question? Where? Oh, right here, maybe. I stopped sharing.
Yeah,
So,
on the new platform, I'm still working through that. So I'll repeat the question here. I
yeah.
may not have set your access up the correct way, but in your experience, how often do organizations accidentally leave storage buckets like S3 or Azure Blob publicly accessible? And what's the most reliable way to continuously detect that?
Whew. So, to answer your question, it happens more often than you think. Even like GitHub credentials and um, yeah, it happens. I've seen it several times. Um, and how to detect that. So there's like CTI platforms that you can actually monitor any kind, like something like recorded future, right? Or some, there's other, would it just say like a dark trait or dark side or whatever? There's, so say for example, you have an S3 bucket or you have some kind of, blob storage or whatever. If you have trigger points into those containers, we can get alert, or the CTI team or the blue team or whatever you want to call it will get alerted if something was leaked. Say, for example, if you put password or creds or whatever the word is, we can get alerted if those if that data is accessed or if it's leaked. Um, there's definitely security measures to put in place to prevent that, or at least to alert you to let you know that, uh-oh, we just leaked something, right? And it happens all the time. Like you think you're setting up something like logon.abc.com and you think it's internally, but then you just set up a NAT rule and then NATed it to a public, IP, which within your IP scheme. And now login.abc.com has no certificate authority, no SSL cert, and now it's sitting on the internet. And now all these bots or these bug bound, whatever you want to, they have access to BGP with border gateway protocol, like to do like DNS queries super rapidly. And it's like, oh, this is a new host name that's been exposed, and now it's like, oh, we're going to go ahead and attack them, and you didn't even know you did it. So with that, you can say, okay, I can have these URLs. If anything is impersonated or leaked, give the and you can ingest that as what's called a data connector from, for example, recorded future into Sentinel. But yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I have another good question for you. Is there a measurable way to demonstrate improvement in cloud access security posture over time? Something we could present to our leadership or auditors?
Oh man. Say that again.
Is there a measurable way to demonstrate improvement in cloud access security posture over time? Measuring the improvement of your posture over time to show it to leadership and auditors.
Yeah. So I think just like we showed in the slides, there's a Microsoft Security Scorecard. So if you're using cloud apps, right? If you're using Defender for Cloud, MDE, Sentinel, across that you have a scorecard. So you can take all your assets that reside within we're going to talk about the Microsoft ecosystem, right? That sits inside of that organization or inside of that tenant. And then you can do quarterly audits and you can just export that. There's an export option right on the top right if it's still there. And you can actually make little not queries like if you guys are good with Sentinel, you can run a KQL query to actually pull that as well. And if anyone, if whoever wrote that, you want to reach out to me, I think I still have a KQL query because our clients would need that as well. And I can just run a query and it'll give me spit out the score, and then we can do that. But yeah, there's definitely that to go about.
That's a great answer. I have one or two more questions for you. How do you handle third-party vendors requesting temporary access to your cloud environment?
Ooh, so yeah, so you that's a good question. So obviously you can add federated services your uh to your client or whatever. And pretty much the way we did it was we added access once we were done. If it's, for example, an auditor, or if you want to have, a third party consultant or whatever, once they're done with their job, we can give that I forget what it's called. There is actually it just came out recently, that you can use like a Microsoft, um, you can put multiple tenants that can federate and you can allow into your environment for like a temporary time. And I forget the name of it right now, but you can actually go in and you can allow and for 48 hours or 1 week. So sometimes like if you don't remember, and it can be a stale account and they still have access. But there is something, there's it's like an acronym, for allowing cross tenant access, but I don't recall it off the top of my head right now. Sorry.